we're on here. Making sure. All right, we're good. I think we are. Hello, hello. All right, I got a couple things I got to do here. All right, just making sure this is working. Yes, it is. Okay, put that on pause. Get this on Twitter real fast. Hang on real quick. Sorry about this, folks. Kind of doing this spur of the moment. I've had it on my agenda for a while and just had a window of opportunity to do it. Started putting that on Twitter. All right, we're good there. Give some folks some time to join too. Hello there, welcome. All right, so I'm just going to get going here. I think I'm going to start by playing some of this material from the last thing I did on energetics, because in Energetics 11, I've been doing a series of presentations that are about the field of energetics. And for those unfamiliar who might be newer to my material, I'm a person that spent most of my life building radio communication networks within the cellular mobile, well, I guess you could say wireless service provider industry. So to be specific, within the United States, there's companies like AT&T, Verizon, T-Mobile. There's not that many big ones anymore. They're all getting absorbed by other people. So it's like Sprint's getting absorbed by T-Mobile, Cricket got absorbed by AT&T. Some are functioning as their old selves, others are absorbed into the new company. So it's hard to keep track anymore of who's who and what's what. But yeah, I used to do that. And I designed them. I used to repair the towers themselves, maintain them, and I also used to do optimization. I used to be a "can you hear me now" guy, just like you saw in those old Verizon commercials, the guy that goes around going, "Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now?" That's what I did for many, many years. I was that type of technician or engineer within those companies, within various different disciplines in network operations, system performance, or radio frequency RF, which is called RF engineering planning, or wireless design engineer, I guess would be a more broad term for those who are looking for something of that nature. So, and what got me interested in these other topics is that, I would hear frequently people, because they would have these more esoteric beliefs on concepts of human energy that I did not know about and had not been educated in. And so it was easy to be dismissive of those things. And then I would say maybe about 5 years ago or so, I began to take them a lot more seriously as I was approached by people that just had better than average information that was more compelling to me as an engineer. And I think it was through receiving a lot of this information and taking it under more serious review that I understood why a lot of the more garbage information that is out there circulates relative to topics involving human energy and how diseases and other types of things come into manifestation through means other than just, quote, germs and bacterias. Because I really thought about this, especially lately, as things have gotten weirder and weirder within the naming conventions of illnesses and medications both. Guys, if you watch news, especially news networks, you're just going to see on daily average tons and tons of like these medications, and the names of them are increasingly more bizarre and occulted and don't make any linear sense, but they do function as puns very frequently. You kind of notice them and go like, why is that a pun for something else? Or it seems like it's a joke that's supposed to mean another thing. Well, now you're onto something. Okay. So what I would like you to think about relative to this material is when it comes to the placebo effect, which we know is a thing, where they've learned that quite a number of people can just heal by means of their own minds. They're given a sugar pill and they just believe that it cures them of whatever they have. And that was enough to take care of them. They didn't know that they did not receive medicine, but being told that they received medicine was enough to make the person believe that what they ingested can cure what they have. I would suggest that both within illnesses and within wellness treatments or whatever you want to say, that all of it involve a good percentage of this exact dynamic of this placebo effect, both in creation of illnesses that spread into the collective consciousness and then into our physical bodies, because everything vibrates into physical resonance through the universal plasma field. Think about what I just said over and over again. Okay. Everything. If you think about it, that everything is a universal plasma field, and I'll get the documentation relative to what I'm telling you. You can accept that or not. It doesn't mean that that's, look, I'm beginning this conversation with this idea that everything's a universal plasma field and that solid matter vibrates into physical resonance. And I'm going to make a point about why that's true, because especially if you've been involved with engineering work, like a lot of my old coworkers, I would argue that if you need evidence yourselves, ask yourself how a tower comes into existence if it doesn't vibrate into physical resonance just through talking, because it does. I know. Yes, Gabe. Sure. It vibrated into resonance. Uh-huh. Of course it did. It started with this. Now let's think about it. Like, I want you to take a closer look at what I'm showing you here. The spark, the idea. All right, so we know, right, when we're looking at the human body, that you have, your skeletal structure would be the center of this. It's obviously not illustrated on this particular drawing. And then you have your face, right, which is the skin layer out here. But what is not discussed is this non-visible layer that emanates from your body, which is your biofield. And some people, it's not the same thing as an aura because they are different concepts, but they're related concepts. I'll put it that way. But your biofield is a different science-based concept comparative to an aura, which is something that I used to make a mistake and communicate them as the same. But what I'm telling you is that because all ideas vibrate into physical resonance through this concept, that what you effectively have is that when you think of something and you're meeting with a group of other people. So say, for example, you're on you're in a project meeting, you're thinking about designing a tower or a building. Let's make it something that more people can relate to, I guess you could say. Let's just say that it's a project meeting because you're going to build a building, a few stories of a building that's going to be an office. And that's why this is all happening. And what gets that going? Well, it's not like, the brick and the mortar all begins immediately. No, I mean, what it really begins is that through these biofields all merging, that a bunch of people that are these physical beings that vibrate into resonance through these biofields originally, because, mother, father looked at each other and said, hey, I think it'd be cool to form another one of these. And their biofields met together and then they merged. And then through that, their actions, they created another creature, another human that creates biofields similarly and vibrates things into resonance similarly. If you start thinking about the human machine as a trinity of energy and not so much just as like the brain, the skeleton, all these other things, that this matters, and what you focus and concentrate on is put out into this field that does vibrate things into resonance, into a colorful, spectral, whatever you want to say, like it's all there. Your ideas, your thoughts, your behaviors all bring things into physical resonance, just like your body came into physical resonance through shared ideas, whether that was just the attraction of your parents or whatever, or just the desire to create a child, however it happened, right? The same thing happens with all physical inventions, all buildings, all cars, whatever it is, all electronics, all starts with a spark, the idea right here. And then the biofield begins to create it by merging into other biofields. And then their bodies move into bringing it into physical creation, right? So once you understand that concept, the same thing is true for um, illnesses and diseases relative to what we're experiencing, I think, right now with this whole coronavirus thing. And I think that the people that are behind it do have a pretty good understanding of what this all means and what I'm talking about. And I think that's why a lot of information about biofields and what it really means and what we're all existing in is sort of suppressed information, or it's information that is designed to make a lot of us roll our eyes. But what I would appeal to those of you, especially if you used to know me in a professional environment, is to ask yourself, if what I'm saying is so crazy, then how did every single tower that we all built together, how did it happen if this isn't true? I want you to zoom out from what you really are and ask yourself, how did it all vibrate into frequency? How did it all happen, really? It started with ideas. It started with concentrated thinking, focus on an idea. Somebody sat there to themselves quietly meditating on something and thought up an idea. And then they shared that idea with somebody else. They vocalized it. And now this biofield is beginning to merge with other biofields. And then they're sharing and merging their ideas together. And that's forming into a larger biofield. Now you're having the circular grids. Let's get to that really quick. So the circle grids are the next part of the biofield, because once you accept what I just told you is a thing, right? Then you have to think of your biofields then as merging together, just like these circle grids. A couple people have ideas, then you get one vesica Pisces that forms with a couple other people's, the hemispheres of their brains form together. And then again, you start to see the color spectrum eventually form from this. But what I'm telling you is this is how all things come into physical resonance into the 3D spectrum that we exist in, that is a universal plasma field that we perceive as solid matter, but is still a universal plasma field. I don't care what it is and how long it's been here, it's still plasma. But how long have you been focusing and concentrating along with a whole bunch of others in a collective on it being what it is, that it is in fact a physical object? That's what made it happen. It's belief. It's all belief. It really is. It's all placebo when you get down to it. That's all that's the focus of this presentation, is to let you know. Let me just tell you something, okay? I've been all over the place, and I just don't believe in some things, okay? I just choose to say, like, that's just not something that can affect me, or it doesn't, yeah, I'm not going to allow it, or whatever. And I haven't gotten sick. I haven't gotten any of these viruses. And ever since COVID started, let's see here, I was in, since COVID began, let's see, gosh, let me think here. I've been in, gosh, I've been in Nevada, Oregon, Washington, Georgia, some places on the east. Pretty close to 7 states now, I think. At least I've been passed through 7 states, at least, since COVID started. Stayed in many hotel rooms of varying qualities, mostly. Well, look, no, actually, I had some pretty fortunate luck, and thank you to those who helped me out in those times. I was in some pretty decent hotels from a good portion of it, due to the generosity of others. But at other times, I was in some, when I was having to do things more independently while I was working and things like that. I was definitely in a more budget situation, put it that way, where the cleanliness wasn't quite as good as other places, or they just don't have it as their focus. And so it's strange to me that in all this time, the one thing that I've held on to was this idea of my own, that that if I don't believe in something, or I don't allow it to affect me, it just doesn't. The power of the mind to both heal, block out illnesses, or prevent them from happening, whatever. I was always suspect of what it was overall. I always felt like there was a certain element of primed, getting the collective hive mind to bind and add more power and fuel to something that, whether it was a real thing or not, it doesn't really matter, folks. It doesn't, how do I say it? You can get something to become real by getting a small number of people to believe rigidly in it, and then it begins to manifest because those people act as, quote, what I like, I don't like to call it, but I guess I could say I've started to call people that have this ability, that have more bioplasma output, getting back to the other thing. So thinking about how ideas and solid matter comes into fruition, into 3D perception, you really just have to think about these as circular grids, as ideas forming with biofields that emanate from the spheres of your brain, all of your intentions and everything like that. And then once they pass through your pineal gland, then they form the 3D color spectrum. And then when they merge into other people's biofields, then you bring things into solid matter. Then when you're in a working group and you all think to yourself, hey, we want to build a tower, we want to build a building, we want to build, you know, a church, or we're going to build a clean water system for this village, whatever it is, you still share a biofield and bring it into physical resonance through this concept of the universal plasma field, sharing ideas, expressing those ideas through thoughts and vocalizing them amongst each other. Then you bring it into physical resonance. It's just the way it is. Now, if you can accept that concept relative to things like involving engineering and architecture and building things, then you can also apply it to illnesses and things that occur within healing, whether it's both things that can heal or if they can cause harm. Then you start to understand the more sinister forms of, I guess, the ancient concepts of hexing, casting spells, or hexing, or creating mass hexes. Now I think there's a certain element of this sort of mass hex spell casting. Sorry to use those types of terminologies, folks, but it is sort of like an industrial strength form of witchcraft is the best way to call it. I don't know what else to say, folks. I mean, I really try not to use salacious terms like that, but you must know the reason why there's so many movies surrounding these things and why there's been so many people who have been able to put on public displays that there is something to believe in relative to concepts of energy manipulation, relative to, you know, people that call themselves magicians that can create very realistic illusions in front of you, whether those were done through trickery that's easily explained or through things that are more explained through this concept. In either case, this is the one that I'm talking about more, less the visual, whatever. But yeah, it's witchcraft. Okay. So let's not, we can't, I guess the reason why I said that, Lisa, is I'm trying not to be, I guess maybe sometimes I try too hard to make this material palatable to a broader audience, but you know, I guess I shouldn't try that hard. I'm just trying not to say like, you know, like it's voodoo, it's witchcraft. I don't want to sound like the person that's just sort of like jumping up and down on a pulpit, you know, waving around terms like that. But the only way to really describe it, though, is that it is sort of like they figured. Let me like find a good balance here. They took everything that they've learned about why witchcraft is effective. Like, for example, we talk oftentimes about like, you know, why is there an economy potentially around like blood drinking or things like that? You know, like why can you say tangibly that these things do exist and that some people are interested in it and that you can't just, you know, sweep it under the rug as quote conspiracy theory? Well, because within ancient traditions they practiced it for these reasons. Like they believed they could receive life extension. They must have been actually, you know, receiving said life extension from stealing the blood and plasma of, you know, younger people or whatever, for example, you know, vampirism, things of that nature. Otherwise, it never would have been a thing. And so the more of us that began talking about it, even though it was considered to be like, you know, oh, hey, you little tinfoil hat conspiracy theorists, a person like me could actually discuss it intelligently. And by the way, I got the attention of Jesse Karmazin, the head of one of the plasma dealers. He actually, if it was a legitimate profile, posted on one of my clips that I did about his business model. And you do get their attention and they do respond to you and they will, you know, reach out and try to like, you know, say, hey, there's nothing wrong with what we're doing. All right, sorry, that's a little bit off topic, but it's really not. Maybe you guys want to look into that. I mean, I actually did some articles on this whole concept of people that are basically doing plasma transfer, taking plasma from younger people, kids and teenagers, and transferring it to adults. And not for the reasons of like necessity, but for, you know, wellness, to just feel better, you know. Now, look, guys, Sorry. I'm getting that scratchy throat thing, so you'll forgive me. I'm not sick or anything, don't worry. I just need something cool. All right. It's because there's something about, actually, I'm glad I brought this up because it is relevant. They want plasma for the same reason, like everything I'm telling you within the biofields and bioplasma and what we structure into reality and why it is what it is. It is the building blocks to everything that we exist in. It is the plasma field. And when they get it from a person, they're getting the building blocks of life effectively as it's passed through a person. They're able to sort of, I guess you could say, experience life at the cycle of whoever they get it from. And so that's what makes the plasma transfer valuable. And that's why I guess you could say they get such a performance boost from getting it from somebody younger, because the truth is, when you're younger, you can learn language easier. Like you can learn like a kid, if trained properly and put in the right circumstances, can literally just learn things at such an accelerated rate that adults couldn't possibly get. They can learn new languages, they can learn mathematics, they can do all kinds of things at an accelerated rate. The evidence is in the fact that a baby can learn a complete language within a matter of a few years and be side by side with you, speaking sentences, correct? So if that's not a sign of just how advanced the brain of a baby is and why their plasma would be valuable to somebody older, I don't know what is. That's what gives these older people a performance edge. It's that exact thing I just told you about. It's that ability to accelerate your learning, your ability to accelerate all types of processes, because, again, this is what God gave babies. They gave them these building blocks that's for them and them only, not for these older people to be taking from them. That's the danger of these economies. It's the reason I'm mentioning this, guys, is because it is relative to this concept, and because it involves something that's, I guess you could say, sort of ancient and esoteric, a practice of, I guess, taking somebody's blood, quote, blood drinkers, that normal people just sort of like roll their eyes at. But even when you present them with evidence, like, here is a guy that has gotten on stage at TED Talks and everything and tried to sell you on this idea, and you're still denying that it exists. What is wrong with you? Those of you out there who still think that's not a thing. Yeah, it is. And the guy actually got on my YouTube channel and said, there's nothing wrong with this. And so when a person is faced with all that evidence, all they can do is go like, well, I guess there must be nothing wrong with it then. It's like, no, no, no. That's the whole point of this media campaign, and what they're doing is to convince you that there's nothing wrong with it. And there is. The minute you begin to make an economy out of the younger the plasma, the more valuable, and the more it's of this particular blood type, the more valuable, the more you place a value on a live human and what is inside them. And an economy begins to surround that human and what is inside them. And that becomes the danger. This shouldn't even be something I have to sell anybody on, like why it's dangerous. Like the minute I say this to you, you should kind of go like, oh yeah, because I want you to think about it. Say, for example, this is what I've also learned in this research, is that I don't have all the exact things like which ones are the most valuable, but like different forms, like blood and plasma have different cycles of value. So yeah, like Rh negative O blood type blood and organs are like the most valuable to like an organ harvesting economy. But to the living plasma transfer economy, there's a whole separate metric of values and people and groups that they look for. So this kind of tells you that like nearly everybody has a potential to be on this list. It's not just this sort of like rare Rh negative O blood type that's out there. Yes, they do have their own unique circumstances. And I would say that there's almost a protected class thing that needs to sort of happen there, guys. I mean, let's be realistic. With the way things are working right now, if we should, like, the one thing we should care about, I put this on my Twitter recently, like, who are the custodians of making sure we have a human DNA seed bank? And I don't mean that in any sinister way. There should be pure human DNA. We should have untainted, unmodified, unvaccinated, pure human DNA that exists out there in nature that we can tap into for breeding. Like we would want these people to be like, hey, do you mind having a few more kids? Because somebody effed up the genetic cycle by putting all this crap into the supplies of all these other people. Like maybe it would behoove us to protect those who have not yet been tainted, who have not yet gone through the whole series of vaccinations and everything else like that. And we may want to actually value the people that hold on rigidly to those ideas and keep them in a separate, for their, if they want to, is what I'm saying. I'm not saying like mandated. No, 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 no. But that's a bunch of shit. What I'm saying though is if those people, it shouldn't be considered something where they're like vilified, is all I'm saying. It should be a selective decision. And it should almost be something where like those people should be given a certain degree of respect for volunteering to take on that risk. The same way that maybe they should also say, look, I don't think that people that get vaccinated out the yin yang deserve my respect, to be honest with you. But if they want to be human guinea pigs and they're completely comfortable with it, maybe they deserve their own type of respect. I don't know. As long as you're not pushing your decision on me. This in lies the problem, I guess. Honestly, though, day to day, I don't see too many people getting on this. I honestly feel like the strong opinions on this topic are largely being manufactured by these alt media characters and these fake TikTok characters and all these other things where I'm kind of going like, wow, do these people feel very, very synthetic? They just don't feel like real people that are trying to convince me that getting vaccinated is like, but that not being vaccinated is like the worst decision you could make for humanity and that you're an awful person. Like, I almost never run into somebody in nature that has that opinion, even of the ones that support it. Of the ones that support it, that I've witnessed, it's mostly just been like, they're browbeaten. They're poor. They've suffered from things. They're experiencing a lot of issues with just wanting their lives to return to normal, and they're about ready to give up. And they're just like, fine, whatever it takes, just jab me again. I didn't feel the last one. Whatever. Fine, I've got a little heart palpitation. Just get me back to work. I just don't care anymore. I don't want to be inside. They get to those people that are a little bit more like, sorry guys, but they're just a little bit more bobblehead in general. They're more people that are just kind of like, okay, I get it. Just leave me alone. Okay, what do you want me to do? Fine. That's what I mean by bobblehead. It's not like, okay, it's not exactly a flattering term, but I mean, it does exist in America, guys, and it just as it does everywhere. There's more people that are into the bobblehead syndrome where they're just more willing to like go like, fine, I'll get the shots. Just let me get to work. And so what are we going to do, I guess you could say, to get some like, I guess, protection of the human genetic code? What don't shouldn't we value that at this point, or is the point of this maybe to taint the supply all over? I mean, I don't know. It kind of feels that way. It almost feels like whoever's doing this wants as many of their adversaries to be, quote, tainted and forced into this scenario while they keep themselves very, very pure and don't actually go through all this. I'm really not thinking that the vast majority of these people that are getting jabbed on camera and things like that are actually having it done. I don't think that they would do it to themselves. I think this is about convincing everyone else to get it done, keeping themselves pure, keeping themselves in a less whatever state, you know. Yeah. And that's why I wanted to sort of like make an appeal to folks to say, like, you know, shouldn't we, whatever your opinion is on this issue, shouldn't we value some degree of like keeping some supply or at least some degree of groups of people who agree that they don't want this in a protected state where they're not forced into this, especially if they've been pretty good about not being vaccinated about a lot of things for many years. Like me, I don't get anything done, not flu shots or anything. And yeah, honestly, I haven't really, I haven't had any major, you know, I haven't had any flus. I haven't really had any colds, not in years. I haven't had any reason to go to the doctor. Um, I did have something happen a couple days ago that was a little bit weird, but I'm not sure what to attribute it to. So I don't want to say that it wasn't really an illness. Yeah, I'm not sure what caused it, but it wasn't like a flu or anything like that, you know. I think a lot of the things that go on with me health wise, at least anymore, is probably through some degree of I don't want to get into it, but things that involve technologies. Um, Getting down to it though, yeah, yeah. So here's the thing, yeah. So let's talk about this a little bit. As far as like the mandates go relative to what's happening now, and I don't really even understand, like, because I haven't had to go through this, but it did occur to me because to be honest, yeah, I think more and more because I'm 47 now, and it has become, as especially as my life got, I don't know, as it seems like as my life got more complicated, the more important it became to me to experience like being a father, I guess, and so it was weird, like how before, like the idea that that would never happen didn't really bother me. But I think as things got more intense in my life, the fear, I mean, not the fear, but the idea that I would never have an opportunity to experience that really started to like F with my head a lot. But then what's also kind of, you know, got me thinking is all the things that are being done now relative to this, this virus cycle and like what a new parent has to go through relative to these hospitals and what they try to force upon people decision making wise and telling people this or that, or it's pretty intense. And then when you take it to the next step, when those kids have to go to school and the vaccination cycles to get them admitted, if that's required. That's why I wonder sometimes if that's the reason why some of the things on my birth records are I don't know what to say. I have some like vaccination records that are just, they don't make sense. They don't line up. It shows that I literally had um, a vaccination a year before, 2 years before I was born, is what's listed on one of my vaccination records. So I was born in 74, and you see it jump from 1974 to 1972, and then back to 1974 or 1976 or something like that. And so maybe I was one of those ones because my mother was a person that did not seem to be down with vaccinations overall. Um, But again, this is why I kind of make a point where I think that there's a group of people that make decisions for themselves, where they themselves would never subject themselves to something like a mass vaccination. Yet they would expect everyone else to do it. They would expect everyone else to make this decision, or you wouldn't find them showing a lot of public resistance to the rest of the world doing it. And again, I guess you could say I fall in the category where I feel like if that's what you want to do, that's fine, but it's just not what I would want to do myself. And I don't think anybody, given given the history of this particular thing, guys, I think that if this were functioning in a different way, you could almost make an argument for it. Even then, I don't think you could. I mean, not to me at least, not one. But I think that this is trying to get people to do it at the level that they are now is at such a level of ridiculousness that I'm not sure that any reasonable, intelligent person could actually accept it at face value at this point. Because they're now telling people they're going to need like what, 3 or 4 booster shots for this new Omicron variant. Oh, before I forget, I told one of the viewers here, you know who you are. I said that like Omicron, there is a movie that came out about that, and that like back in the 60s and everything like that. And I said I want to cover this very briefly. I made a comments on the sidelines that I thought that that movie might be one of those ones that was sort of like made in modern times and then backdated in 1963. I had a chance to actually go and look at it, and I reviewed it for, I don't know, like about 10 or 20 minutes, not that carefully, but I watched it closely enough to where I could get a good feel for the cinematography, the camera movements, the way they were talking, the graininess and things like that. These are the kind of things that I study when I'm looking for the markers of a fake one. And what I will say is whatever is going on with that movie, whether it's timeline oriented or whatever, I don't think that it's one of the ones that I mentioned. So I don't think it was made now and then backdated in 1963. It does appear to me to be like a genuine film, like a genuine science fiction, Italian science fiction film from 1963 called Omicron. That is pretty much a very similar plot line to Invasion of the Body Snatchers. And so I guess what I would tell people is if you really want to see what I think is going on, like within a movie metaphor that's a lot more accurate, that you might find your time is better spent watching the 1970s variation of Invasion of the Body Snatchers, not even the 50s one, but I think the one that was done with Donald Sutherland, Jeff Goldblum, Brooke Adams. That particular one that's set in San Francisco and done in the 70s is, to me, probably the best metaphor for what I see in people's mentality as a visual metaphor. If you're just looking for a good Hollywood movie about what this concept that I think is discussed in Omicron, but is done in a way that's a lot better, whatever. I think Invasion of the Body Snatchers is probably more effective at talking about this sort of dynamic where there's a certain group of people that just tell you with such a straight face, like, this is the only way. You have to get vaccinated. This is it. And it's almost like they look like they've had some bizarre personality shift. And that's kind of how Invasion of the Body Snatchers is. It's like, they're just like, be one of us, just relax, go to sleep, That's kind of what it's like. There's this group of folks that just really want everybody to kind of go into this collective spell, which is a lot more like this. And sorry, folks, I'm not trying to inject too much of my own opinion into this. I'm trying to say, like, how does these things come into manifestation to begin with? And there is a little bit of like industrial strength black magic. I don't know what else to tell you. And black magic really at its core, if you make fun of it, it's to your own detriment, because the U.S. Army doesn't make fun of it. They hired people to be in psychological warfare divisions that were the founders of the church. Well, the Temple of Set, founded by Lieutenant Colonel Michael Aquino, now deceased. He was in the Army, he was in the NSA, and he was in the psychological warfare division, and he was a practicing Satanist. He was a founding member of a thing called the Temple of Set. And so they take these things very seriously, because really at the core of what Michael Aquino practiced relative to Satanism was the bending of these plasma fields and a deep understanding of these circular grids and how they can change physical reality by changing people's ideas, behaviors, and thoughts. Backdooring everything you think of to where you create these 3D grids according to their orders. They backdoor you. They backdoor your subconscious. They get you to focus and concentrate on these terms: Delta, Omicron, Corona. What is a Corona? What's a Delta? Like, dig deeper into these things, guys. I was going to do it tonight, but I don't want to. Tonight, why? There's a reason why I don't want to. Because I feel like there's a part of me that if I'm going to unpackage those things in another presentation, I guess. Tonight I'm thinking the best thing to do is to discuss it more in terms of when you, hang on, let me get closer to this image. Here we go. I want to be more, yeah, here we go on these. When you think of like these things as hemispheres of your brain forming ideas with other people, and that your pineal gland is sort of like a 3D graphics processor unit, kind of like in your computer, you have the graphics GPU, graphics processor unit. That's a lot like what your pineal gland is. It's receiving your intentions, it's receiving energy from all these different centers. And then as it hits your pineal gland, it forms the circular grid, right? And then within the center is your vesica Pisces, which is why I've done that thing about the third eye. You have your actual two eyes here, but then you have your pineal gland, which forms that prism. So it forms literally a triangle between the line you draw from here to here, and then the two lines that go from your eyes up to your pineal gland is that forms the triangle and the prism, this esoteric concept that they all go, ooh, voodoo, Illuminati. No, it's just enlightenment. It's an understanding of how we form our 3D reality, what we're all existing in. And the more people that understand this, the more that they'll realize that if you learn, I know this sounds oversimplified, But if you learn that everything is a bit of a spiritual battle, there's a spiritual component to everything we are existing in physical reality, and that there's people that are constantly seeking to drag us into a darker reality, drag us down into darker thoughts, beliefs, and values, then you begin to understand where you can actually change this plasma field by simply exiting their false information system and beginning to form new circular grids of your own design amongst the people that you agree upon the thoughts and values with, especially when you're what I call a super delegate of bioenergy and bioplasma, because when you are, you can do the work of like this is like a three people, right, thinking together form this one here underneath above my finger. Maybe over here to the one that's on the other side of it, that's a few more people together form that circular grid. And then you can see how it forms into a greater color spectrum as you go out, 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 and more people join. And they're thinking about the same thing at the same time and have the same goal in mind. Then you get the 3D spectrum that's formed through the plasma bending through what? The pineal glands. And it receives the energy from the heart. It receives the energy from the loins. Everything that motivates you to do things for one another, your sexual attraction, your desire to provide for your family, your desire for having a good life, your desire to succeed, all of these things, all the motivating factors are all the things that are pinging your pineal gland, your heart, your loins, all sending the energy up to your pineal gland, forming the 3D spectrum, merging into all the other circular grids and creating inventions, creating architecture, buildings, and in the case of COVID, I would argue creating an entire global illness, which was designed to deform and destructure all the grids that it was forming into these things. Here's what's trippy about it. Here's why I think that that was the purpose of it. Because nearly everything that we deal with this virus, starting with Corona, is more of a life affirming thing. I did this whole chart. Yeah, and I get that this is a little bit, oh, hey, Gabe, go back to the hippie commune, man. But whatever, that's fine. I just want to show you what I did when COVID came out, because to me, this is like the absurdity of what was happening to all of us. I kept on making things like this and posting them to social media because I wanted people to think about what was really going on with this. This is a corona. That aura, that glow that goes around that circle is an aura, that or a corona. And so again, if you think about it, like if you were to see a corona through a telescope out in space, it would be a sign of life. It would be a sign that there's something out there that you did not know it previously existed. It's a glowing, spectrometer or something showing up on a spectrometer or a telescope or whatever. That's an indicator that something is out there, that it's anomalous and is breathing life and is emanating an energy and has a corona field attached to it, which is a sign that it's pushing plasma out and is uniquely identifiable within a universal plasma field that we all exist in. And so an illness or a virus, I would argue, is operating on the same concept, which is why they made the point to call it a corona. So I said, this is a corona. And I was saying over and over again, make love, not fear. This is a corona. Why are they trying to take something that's life affirming about bioplasma fields glowing and turn it into a global virus? Why does Delta become, its next variant? I get it. They're using the Greek alphabet. Why did they jump over to Omicron? Why the O? So we're going to get deeper into those topics, in another presentation. But tonight, I really wanted this to be about, what was really the design of this this virus overall. Like, what was its intention and what was its purpose? I don't know how many of you are familiar with my energetics material, but I oftentimes talk about like Um, how do we basically, well, when I started discussing energetics, it was mostly because I started noticing a lot of people would say like things involving conspiracy theory and intention to harm, or things when people they would quote admit that they were about to do something bad. They would send it out there and go, well, like, well, you know what these groups have to do? They have to tell you what they're going to do before they do it. Well, that is kind of an interesting observation because let me expand on that. That really is a sort of at the that's sort of like the law of reversal of a project call. And so when they're going to dismantle you, when they're going to like cause you harm, I call it signaling intention to harm. That's a little bit like the anti-project call. That would be like, when somebody says they're going to destroy a building, a project call would be to build a building, maybe a project call to demolish a building or to do a demolition on one might be an anti-project call. Who knows what you'd call one of those? I guess that would still be a project, a demolition project, but but you have to think of it more like that, like reversals on life affirming concepts. And when I was looking into Omicron, it was really weird how many of these like various like science fiction themes and films that I was finding. I mean, I can show them to you guys. I'd rather do it a different presentation because I really feel like the thing to do tonight is to more deeply discuss this concept of the universal plasma field and maybe even show you some of this material that I've done already on the topic here. Excuse me. So the reason I came to believe things the way that I do, and I think I've been a lot healthier, both physically and healthier. Just I feel better. I just generally feel like I can manage through difficult situations better. I still struggle with things sometimes, folks. I'm not perfect. Things still piss me off, just like it would anybody else. But I've learned how to manage through things a lot better and get past them quicker. Um, through my understanding of bioenergetics and the universal plasma field. It's the best way that I can explain it. I don't let as many things affect me the way that I did before once I learned the techniques of the wizards and the witches, I guess you could say, that are the sorcerers behind, I guess you could say, large scale bioenergy manipulation, which is seeding things in the collective consciousness to get us to apply a negative definition to a life affirming concept for us. They themselves will not do this to themselves. They won't do this to one another, except for when they're trying to gain an edge on the other, but they can usually tell each other's tricks. I'm telling you that the point of this is for there to be fewer of us and more of them when it's all said and done. And the more you allow this to take over, the more you allow them to succeed by believing in the terms, believing in what they're doing right now, the more harm it's going to do all of us. This is basically a desperation plan to terraform this planet. They do it by getting people to tear apart their own societies. This was the perfect plan. I would really urge those who haven't figured out what it's really about just to start to really wake up. It's okay to resist it. These people really aren't as powerful as you think. They do it all through just shaming you and trying to like go like, you can't say that, you can't do that, and increasingly everybody's saying yes, I can. So keep on saying yes, I can. Keep on resisting it. It is the healthiest thing in the world to do. Have the facts to back it up, because the people that are going to argue with you really don't have they don't even have an argument to stand on. It's all about the biofield. And let me explain that really quickly in more detail. I'm not sure if I have my cameras running properly or not. Let me see if I do here. I don't know if I want to do this or not. No, it's not going to work. Okay, sorry. I have another camera, but I guess it's not working, so I can't do the whiteboard. I was going to do it a couple different things, but yeah. Yeah. Yeah, those folks, we have to really start talking about this concept of energy draining and plasma fields and things like that more intelligently, because This isn't just like something that is in science fiction movies. I mean, there's a literal, okay, I cover this in Energetics 1 and 2, but I'll give you a quick brief overview of what I'm talking about with this universal plasma field. Every time you think of something, it attaches, like through your desires, your wants, or whatever, your fears, your loves, or whatever it is, thoughts and values attach to that, and it programs the plasma within your body. Your body's like what, 60, 70% in that range of water, right? And then the water is effectively the ocean. So I would argue that everything that we exist in that is this planet is a replica of the human body. Just as the human body is 60, 70% water, the entire world is 60, 70% water, because it is a replica of us. It unpackages to our human mind as a circular, it's a sphere, but that's because if you notice, this eye is like, it's shaped like a vesica Pisces here, shaped like a vesica Pisces here. And then the invisible, right, is the one that's formed here with the hemispheres of our brain, right? So 1, 2, 3, three vesica Pisces form into this 3D prism, and then we're just passing energy back and forth. And the people at the highest levels know this about us. They know that we just vibrate everything into frequency. So when they get control over the media and they just keep going, COVID, 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 fear, 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 COVID, anti-life, anti-life, anti-life. They've done it so many times. Corona is now associated with a global pandemic that causes disease, illness, and death, and it's actually a life-affirming concept. They did it once before with HIV and AIDS, a hive, a beehive. It's a life-affirming concept. The queen is in the hive. They make honey in the hive. The bees are at the core of everything that structures society. If the bees die, humans die. We know this about ourselves, okay? So they start calling hive HIV. Then they take the concept that involves helping one another, facilitating help, community, which is what? Aiding one another, helping, aid. They turn help into a disease. Do you understand that these are collective consciousness hive mind illnesses? They began that way, and then they get people to be so afraid of them that you can get them to manifest in yourselves and one another through belief. Remember, though, you can do the same with love, with faith, with forgiveness, with everything we've learned through the best parts of our spiritual guidances that we've received in various whatever that we grew up in. And the best aspects of our spirituality and our search for God, we learn the concepts of forgiveness. We learn the concepts of eternal life. And what is all that really? And I would argue that even the Trinity itself, the Holy Trinity, is really just discussing the Trinity of human energy, the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. All of it, they're metaphors for a greater learning that you eventually will attain if you really get it, if you really dig deep. And then you learn it. It's there. I think it's there for people to get it at that level. And there's people that just really swooped in to try to prevent us from learning it. And they want to keep it for themselves. So those of us who figured it out, especially those of you who are super delegates, just take it on as your responsibility to do more with your plasma field, to elevate humanity around you. I try to myself. Look, I'm not always perfect. I don't always succeed in those endeavors, but I'm trying. And I'm trying to like do more things to convince myself that it's the right thing to do too. Not convince myself, but just to reinforce it, Well, yeah. So, yeah, you say that you see the most people that you interact with still believe in COVID, unfortunately. But that was the whole point of it, was to get everybody to sort of just believe in it rigidly, no matter what. And I think that's why I think that if we really, I honestly think that this whole thing involving the reason why COVID is really called coronavirus, I don't want to get too esoteric with what I'm proposing here, but if you think about timelines and what people are trying to prevent, ask yourself, why call it coronavirus when this was all when really we know that this is what they're trying to prevent people from understanding. It's, if you go back to the beginning of this presentation, I told you, it's just like when when an architect sits down and they go like, I have the coolest house or building in the world and I want to see it manifest. And man, that architect goes to work, and they just go like, they think about it, then they begin drawing, and they begin making very specific outlines and measurements and everything else. And then they meet with somebody, and then those people start doing what? They talk. They talk, and then they leave those discussions, and they what? They think. And when they think, they're not just thinking. They are doing this. They are doing this. When they are thinking, this is the invisible layer that is extending from them, that forms into what eventually becomes physical reality. Enough of these people get together and think about this building, or think about the tower, or think about the house, or whatever it is they're going to do. They are going to bring it into physical manifestation through these biofields. Once you get people to understand this concept, I promise you, this really is really at the core of it. If we can get people to get this, you're not going to have as many people believing in COVID the way they did before. If you get intelligent engineers and technicians and all these other people out there to really get what I'm telling you the way I can explain it to them, they're going to go like, whoa, man, they tricked us. And I'm going to go, yeah. So what are we going to do about it? Then you're going to get them, they'll be thinking about ways that they can reverse this horrible reversal on life. They're taking a life-affirming concept and making it anti-life, like they do everything. And who would do something like that? Who would have such a wicked agenda? Who would do that? The answer is in the question. Then when you know who the who is, then that's, I guess, what we have to get down to. Who is the who? World Health Organization, right? Yeah, there you go. Like, there you go, Truth Seeker. Fauci's repeating the same mistakes. So it's like, it's bizarre. Like, here we are, we're having them tell us to trust these goons that are untrustable, that have never shown us that they're anything but shills. They all, this just looks very, I'm sorry, guys. It looks like everything it is. It just feels like something some Nazis would do. It sounds like the creation of some company that would have a CEO that might declare they have a Nazi king running it. I don't know. Biomedical. Look into their history. Think about it. Yeah, I mean, that's just for those of you in the know, but think about it. Like, what? Who else would it be? You know, they're stamped. They're just like the Riddler. They're just like the Joker. No, the Riddler. They're more like the Riddler. Isn't the Riddler that always leaves behind the calling card? Or is it the Joker? I mean, whoever it is, man, these people, like, they have to leave those freaking calling cards. It's just, it's, you know what? It's not that they have to, it's that there's something that's inside their psyche that's attached to their biofield. And those of us who just know biofield signatures can recognize it like that. The puns that they use, you just know when you're dealing with them. If you get Nazi King runs SCIC, you'll get all the things I tell you about the Love family cult. You'll get everything I tell you about all the puns, all of the wordplay, and none of it'll seem ridiculous, because once you know what's at that level of one of the biggest defense contractors in America that keeps its name out of all of our minds and mouths, and every major media organization never reports on them, is run by Nazi King. And nobody is saying a word about how obviously fake that is. I'm pretty much the lone ranger there, and the few people that kind of like understand it similarly to me kind of go like, I know, dude, what do we do? I'm just trying to laugh more when I can, because the rest of the time is just too freaking sad to. There does need to be some more comedy surrounding it, because that's really how you get people to. Sorry, just had to drink some soda, so I was a little bit. But no, there needs to be a little bit more humor there, I think, in some of the material, because I think that is one of the pathways that gets people understanding this, is the humor and being able to laugh at it and whatever. So I don't know, I got to find something that'll get people that are, We need more people that can understand it, like that have the larger energy signatures, especially. Like the more of those people that get it, I think that there's going to be like a focused. I think the reason why this is so effective is that whoever like thought this up, they made sure to go after the bioenergy super delegates. Those of you who know that have these biofields like this that are like way larger than average. Some people have like biofields like this that are pretty good and healthy and strong. Others like don't look like this at all. Like they'll have lots of flares. Like you see this one on the illustration. Some people don't have like a full ring that goes all the way around the body like this. You'll see a gap like here, from here to here, there'll be almost nothing or next to nothing. Then it'll be really strong, then like a few spikes, and then almost nothing, a few spikes, really strong, a few spikes. It doesn't always go in this full ring around a person's body. And so what I would hypothesize here, and I don't believe I'm necessarily hypothesizing it. I think other people have, had similar, intuitions or done similar research, but that this is a representation of like your body electricity relative to your plasma inside your body. And then it takes sort of like it sends like a static discharge. It sends like a little bit of like a little, psst, you don't feel it, to your finger while you get it measured. And then the return signal that goes back from that, it creates a corona around your fingertip, and it does it across all of these things. And then your fingers are attached to all these different centers on your body, and it creates a map of your biofield relative to body electricity. And I think that you can probably associate a person's like the strength of how strong they're able to influence others relative to the health of this biofield and the emissions of how strong this is. That's an intuition I have about these things that I've been doing with this camera, is that it does represent that to some degree. And so what I think has gone on is that they must have an idea already, and have for a long time, based on some medical data that's probably just commonly available through most medical offices. They must kind of already know, without doing GDV type systems, who has this. And I think they go after those people pretty aggressively in ways that most of them would have no clue. They probably, well, let me put it this way. They're probably intuitive enough to where they know something's wrong in their life. Like, why do I feel like so many people really want to influence me? It's that kind of thing. Why do I feel like so many specific people really seem to want me to be influenced by them and to remember them? Good, bad, or indifferent, whether they want you to have good associations with them or negative ones, they just need you to remember them really, really strongly and to focus and concentrate on them. To me, that's where you got to dig a little bit deeper into the intentions, whether it's me or anybody else. I mean, I already know what mine are. I don't have negative intentions, guys. Pretty open about it. But yeah, I would be open with sharing with you too that I would also seek, not in any malevolent way, but to find people that are like me, that have very strong biofield signatures, to just be like, okay, what do we agree on ideologically? Because what we agree on is a lot like having a project call, like when you go to work and you're saying, all right, well, we agree that this building is going to be a few stories tall, and we want it to be shaped like a cube, and it's going to have a parking lot this size, etc. Right? That's all the things that are agreed upon, and you bring it into physical creation, physical manifestation through the vocalization, the thinking of the ideas, and grouping together into the core group of people, and then eventually forms into the physical object and the physical structure. Correct? So I would argue that changing values and changing ideologies within society operates in a very similar principle. That you don't have to have all of society with you to change their thoughts, values, and opinions overall. What you need, though, is to approach it almost the same way that you would if you were trying to structure a building. You have to almost have the same kind of things. And I think that's how media organizations really did get formed in many cases. It wasn't so much to inform the public as it was to form the public. Were they informing, or were they forming? Were they giving you information, or were they forming physical reality using you as nodes all of these decades since mass media began? Ask yourselves which is true. Have you been getting informed or formed? I just thought that up. Seriously, because I think that's what it is. Just like clay, they've been taking our biofields and forming physical reality through us. And those of us who figured it out, especially those who have the stronger biofields, that's one of the reasons why I continue doing this, good, bad, or indifferent for whatever reasons. I just want to know that if there's some of us who are agreeing on some things, at least this gives me a platform to where I can talk to you. I know a lot of you will either share your ideas here in this chat with me or on the sidelines. And so to me, that's one of the best things that we can do to help improve physical reality is just through sharing ideas and agreeing on just that. Even we don't have to agree on everything, but the things that we do agree on, those of us with stronger than average biofields, they become stronger, they become more powerful ideas. Okay, so again, we don't have to be the same. This whole idea that it's like this, that it has to be like a, what they always call America, like a gumbo, or like it's a melting pot. Well, it doesn't have to melt, but it can definitely, like, I think that I would argue that the parts that are similar form into the same ideas, and that the parts that are insimilar, they just go on to find other people that have similar biofields. They'll merge into those biofields with those people. They just won't merge into the ones of the people that don't share a common ideologies. So that's why I think it is very powerful. I think it does actually improve things. I do continue doing it, even if sometimes I feel like, I'm treading water at times. I know it's not the way it is. It feels that way sometimes, but it's really not that way. If just a few people resonate with this and we're sharing ideas amongst each other, I promise you we're changing things. And I think that that's something that we should have a strong amount of faith and belief in. And that just having faith and belief in that process reinforces it and makes it that much stronger. Please know that, because that's true with every idea. I know this was true about me when I was in the wireless industry. I wasn't the most educated and college trained. In fact, I have zero college. And I was side by side with people that had bachelor's or engineering degrees or PhDs in many cases. And I was side by side with them, and I barely graduated from high school. But I did extremely well in ascending into the wireless industry. Whether I had help or not, it doesn't really matter. You can't get to the level that I did if you're an idiot. Okay. And what I do know is that my takeaway from the whole thing is that just sharing ideas and talking about something, it's amazing what just believing in something and feeling strongly about it does. Because the people that built these towers, I promise you, like, to them it was their universe. The ones that advocated for getting a tower, they care deeply about their neighborhoods. Like, I was in rural markets, okay, and I know people here are concerned about electromagnetic spectrum and its dangers oftentimes. And so I'm not saying this in any way. This is to help you also understand why some people have contrarian perspectives, especially on rural markets. It seems like it would be the opposite. It's actually people in cities that use it the most, but protest the most also. People in rural areas almost never protest having a cell tower put in their area. In fact, they will petition and the government to force them to put a tower in the town and say, hey, we have all these tax dollars going into building cell towers in rural markets, and we still haven't got one, and we want one. That's the kind of people that I was dealing with, just so you know. And anyways, the point is, I dealt with a lot of people that were in these small towns that felt very, very passionate. Like, they wanted a communication tower. They could envision it. They wanted to see it. They wanted service in their area. And I would argue that those people, those just handfuls of people in these little towns of 100 that would cluster together and meet together and go, we want this cell tower and we want it in our town. Them just talking about it brought it into manifestation. They were spell casting. Don't you get it? It's what magicians did. It's what wizards did. It's what witches did. And people do it when they meet together. And they're not even practicing witchcraft. But if you can understand why there's a structure to the people that manipulate physical reality. There's a way that they go about doing it that you don't have to practice, but if you understand it, then you'll understand how you can do something similar without manipulating human consciousness, without manipulating free will. You can use, I never encourage people to manipulate matter like these people do. It's not like that. But you can take the wind out of their manifesting things. That's why I do things like make love, not fear with that corona. When I said this is a corona, it is a life affirming concept. It is a sign of life. It is not a sign of a disease. It is not a sign that something is destructuring. It's a sign that there's energy emanating in a circular field, and it's glowing energy. Okay. To me, that's what a corona is. So to associate it with something as negative as a pandemic, like they associated the words hive and aid with a terminal illness, when you see them doing these things over and over again, you understand what the whole purpose is. People who do this don't have our better interests at heart. So look into, like, we need to learn this. Who did name these things? Who sat down and thought up these names? Who gave them these acronyms? And I want to know personally. I'm very, very curious. Who are the people who dubbed these terms? What are their real names? And I bet you that if they do tell you their real name, that is not even the real person that thought it up. That'll be a fake name. They do this all the time. Whoever they is. The royal they. So what do we do about it? That's the part that I'm trying to stay more focused on here, folks. I promise you. Because I think this is a topic that's worth discussing. I think that, and again, these are going to have to be two separate presentations that I will do soon. One, I've been saying I'm going to do for a long time. That's going to be let's sit down and plan. Let's actually create a game plan for how do we just begin to say, fine, these people are never going to believe what we believe. They are going off into their own la la land reality. What are the rest of us going to do? Well, number one, the rest of us start to understand what this really is and what we can do with it. It's just sharing our ideas, coming to certain excuse me. Sorry about that. Coming to common ideologies, that like shared ideas that we can agree upon, and then working on those ideas and bringing them into manifestation, and especially ones that reinforce the overall ideologies of what we're trying to build upon, because this is really just about spreading information and encouraging others to understand it in a way that's similar scientifically, so that they can see the bridge between thoughts become things, and that the bridge between spirituality and physical reality. Because there is a thing where people that are traditionally more engineering, technical based, and atheist in nature they struggle with this. I know, because I've known many intelligent people, and when you're rigidly atheist, you have to provide the rigid atheist something that gives them the bridge they can cross to understand how beliefs can become something, because they've been trained to think that it's all a bunch of hokum. And when you want to explain it to an atheist like this, they'll go, oh, yeah, I get that. Yeah, bioenergy, the biofield. Yeah, no, you can show me data. Oh, okay. Well, hey, no wonder. That's why something that I know isn't real can become that way. There you go. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's ways you can explain this to nearly anybody from any background if you just begin to approach it from different angles and not being manipulative. Just learn to speak to them at their level and their language about this exact topic, about how we structure reality. And we have to be more, those of us taking it seriously. And I'm trying to take this on myself too. I mean, I honestly, I've been sitting on this presentation for a few days now. I mean, it's just a matter of whenever I find that time, I have to be like in the mood to do it, and ready to proceed with the material and have the ideas formed in my mind so I can speak to it easily. But as far as coming up with tangible steps, I mean, I don't know. I mean, I think that it would probably be good to do things that are more especially when you have people you can agree upon and, with about these things, to just like, I guess, just take it upon yourselves to do like, your own community, like town hall things, almost to have like a town meeting where we go over these types of things. I see people kind of doing that within media organizations to a degree, but I don't know, folks. I think there's a lot of opportunities. I was watching, some of the all media folks today even talk about it. I think what's his um like Tim Cast did some things on the CNN debacle, and he's been talking about, doing things with like a new media organization. He mentioned it today in his article about CNN, and I was kind of like, yeah, man, that makes, like there really does need to be new alternatives to these jokers, because these CNNs, these MSNBCs have been telling us for a long time, like scandals like that, human trafficking and child exploitation are, quote, exaggerations and conspiracy theories of tinfoil hatted conservatives. And then here we are, just today we find this guy, John Griffin, I think is his name, with CNN, who is side by side with Fredo Cuomo over there, recently fired. And then they just got rid of Wallace too. I mean, guys, it's just such a over at Fox, and he's heading over to CNN now. A bizarre thing going on here between the way these one thing's going over to here. And anyways, but he mentioned though that the there's a lot of changes going on with these organizations, like finally being exposed for what they really are. And you're seeing right now, as these scandals are happening, that they're jumping at the alt media, and CNN's creating CNN Plus. And I thought that was a good point that he was making, because he was kind of saying like, no, you need to have a good journalistic organization that has actual alt media, that has actual stories, that whether or not you accept the Timcast is that or not, I don't know. I mean, again, guys, it's just one of the different channels that I'll check out. But whether you agree is what it is or not, I don't know. But the point is that it's needed. Whatever he was discussing in that article today is definitely needed, and we definitely need like a genuine, at least people who are in earnest trying to get down to the truth. And he made a good point about not commenting excessively on other YouTube personalities and spending more time just speaking to who's in power and what's wrong with them, and less about others that are speaking to who's in power. And I tend to agree with that. That's one of the reasons why I try to avoid it myself. People try to bring me into those conversations oftentimes, but I really do try to avoid it. I think I think if I'm challenged with it excessively again, I'm probably going to take that position. So it was a good Timcast thing today about the CNN thing. If you haven't seen it, I don't have a link to it, but it was posted today. But it just talked about how with this producer over at CNN that works side by side with Cuomo, he was basically caught soliciting women on the internet, paying for them. Like, he got caught doing all this, guys. He basically paid for the plane tickets for a mother and her 9-year-old and 13-year-old daughters to fly to his house, where he basically proceeded to, and he did this in advance, convince the mother that the girls needed to be sort of prepared to be sexually submissive to men at an early age, and that he needed to be the one to train them, and that she needed to basically confide in him to be the trainer. And so he convinced this woman to bring her 2 daughters to meet him in his Vermont home, I guess. And he proceeded to, I guess, train. And I guess this all happened. And this is happening with the people that are in the head of CNN. I mean, you had the Jeffrey Toobin thing where he was, caught on the Zoom camera, basically, I guess whacking it, for lack of a better word, or something to that effect. And, that didn't cost him to lose his job. And so it started to become like a question mark. What does it take to lose your job at CNN? It's bizarre, you guys. So those are the people that I would say up until this point since the 80s. I mean, it's that type of mentality that have been structuring our physical reality, because think about what I told you with that construction call. What I'm telling you is true, that it really is that all physical matter begins with ideas. They begin with conversations. They begin with people sharing their ideas, returning to themselves, focusing on these ideas with the new shared ideas amongst each other. It happens within these presentations. I'm having this conversation with you today because of the feedback from the audience. It's from the contributors to this channel. It's from all the people because they express concerns to me. I think about those things. I come up with my own ideas on whatever somebody else shares with me. I have my own concepts of whatever that brings into the thing. And it also exposes to me some things that I hadn't thought of before in many cases. And I see it as a good thing. I actually don't think that this channel, I don't believe that anything would be successful within this channel without the valuable feedback of, I mean, I don't have that many contributors that do it or that many subscribers that share with me that type of whatever, but the ones that do, it is extremely, it does, I guess you could say, affect the material. It does. I'd be completely disingenuous to say that it doesn't. But I believe it does in a good way, because if it doesn't resonate with me, I simply reject it. And everybody will tell you that. I don't care how good of a friend or as strong of a contributor or whatever this is in the situation. If the idea doesn't resonate with me, it doesn't find its way out here. But if there's something within the material or something that's brought to my attention that does resonate with me, it does wind up here. It does wind up as part of the discussion. And if you think about it in terms of that, and you know what I'm doing, and you believe in what I do, those of you who do, then you must know that what I'm saying is true also. Again, we make incremental changes because I only have a couple thousand subscribers. I'm not a person that has a million, okay? But we still make a difference. There still is that limited pool of audience that does have, I think, significant amount of power that does watch my material, whether that's because they have to or because they want to. The point is, whoever you are, if you watch my material, you know that I couldn't have done like a dozen presentations in front of various FBI offices. I did that. I'll stand right in front of their office with their cameras pointed at me, agents going in and out of the building watching me, doing YouTube presentations about how I feel about what's going on in our country relative to this. And I'm not doing protest things. I'm telling them straight up, like, look, there's a mafia here that can manipulate you, the general public, and my data sets equally. I am looking for partners, FBI. I don't think that you're all innocent, and I don't think that you're all guilty. I think quite a number of you know that you're consciously guilty in doing some negative actions within America too, by the way. So I'm not stupid, but I don't think that of all of them, and I want the rest of the audience to know that too. Like, I'm not that cynical where I think it's everybody everywhere all the time. If you know what's going on in our country relative to information control, you know that the information control is the biofield control. And if the whole point of lying to us constantly and feeding us fake information that has archaeometry signatures, which is to say that the fake stories are designed to change our values and our opinions of things in a way that are more backdoors and hacks into our subconscious. They spin the truth into a lie, get us to repeat the lie and accept the lie over and over again. Excuse me. And it's a cycle that we can break. We do it the same way we do when the architect, and again, like, if I'm an architect, like, this is my channel, okay? Maybe I consider myself an architect of ideology. Maybe I consider myself an architect of a larger structure through which we can form a new way of working together and bringing things into physical manifestation. Maybe it's just as simple as that. The point is that whatever it is that I'm trying to visualize, if I constantly place it out there to you as the audience and it resonates with you, there's going to be some things that I say that you'll say, like, yes, Gabe, that resonates very strongly with me, and I agree with that. And other things you might kind of go like, I'm not so sure about that. Okay, what I would argue is the POR spectrum of radiation within orgone, which is biofields, which is like the plasma emissions. that when it's a common idea and you agree with it, and you go like, yeah, that sounds like something I really agree with. The biofields are going to merge once you hear the idea, it resonates with you, you focus and concentrate on it a little bit, it'll just start to manifest. I don't have to worry about it beyond that. And if a negative association, but I think that it goes in the opposite direction. As long as you're not concentrated on how much you hate it, um, I don't believe that just hearing it will do much harm. But again, what I just told you, that is the sort of trick with the dark workers, is to sort of seed ideas that they consciously get you to sort of like that stay stuck in your head, that kind of ruminate in there. They get you to sort of hate that they're in there, and then that's part of what gets them to help them manifest their ideas. Feeling strongly about something in one way or the other, hate or love, I guess. I don't like using those, that's overly simplistic, but a motivation to create or a motivation to deconstruct something, whatever it is, for various reasons. Sometimes there's good reasons to be motivated to deconstruct something. A rotten building, for example, if you can't fix a rotten building and it's all infested, and the only way to do to rebuild is to destroy it, then it may be an appropriate feeling to want to, quote, destroy that building, and you would not be a negative person for wanting to demolish it, correct? So there are some circumstances where having that sort of mentality is of benefit. Just like the good bacteria, the bad bacteria, you'll send certain bacteria to attack others because they do good things within the body, etc. That type of mentality. But yeah, I would say that, again, I'm not going to keep this going much longer today. I'm only going to be on for another five or so minutes here. But um, in summation, though, what I would like folks to do a little bit in thinking this through is, within this virus, if you know that the way it came into manifestation is the same way they get you to believe a fake news story, and that the same way that that operates is the same way that you get a building to come into creation through an architecture plan, then you can start to learn how to sort of deconstruct their deconstructions. You can begin to reverse their reversals. You begin to sort of understand what the dark magicians do, with the people that are more industrial black magicians. And I don't mean that in ethnicities terms. I mean that as far as like, these people perform what are called black mass rituals at an industrial scale. What it is, and that's important to understand what a black mass is within Satanism. When I'm telling you this, it's the mirror. What I call mirroring, it's a lot like black massing. Black massing is where they take like a Catholic ritual of the mass, the meeting of the church and everything like that, but they turn it into something that is not about Christ and creation and life. They turn it into something that's about Satan and reinforcing the death cycle and something traumatic. But they'll use very similar mirrors. They make it look very similar to a Catholic ritual or a Catholic rite, but they create it in a way that honors Satan or Satanism effectively. Okay, a mirror that looks like Catholicism but does the opposite within its belief system or structure, depending on what you believe Catholicism is. I understand people here not always believing that they're into Christianity. No offense to my Catholic friends. I'm just telling you that we all understand different people that come from different perspectives on that one. But if you understand the concept of the black mass ritual, then you can begin to understand what Corona kind of is. If you think about it, Corona is taking something just like the black mass takes the meeting of people to think about Christ and spirituality and things that are life affirming, things that are more about community. You make a reversal of that ritual to think about things that are death oriented, death cycle, things that honor Satan instead of, something more life affirming or the Christ symbol or the Christ concept. I guess you could argue, though, that Christ does have a death attachment to it that's a little bit odd. So perhaps my observation on this one should be reviewed a little bit. But what I mean to say, though, is that They would do something very similar, though, in like mimicking something that is of a Christian value system to change it in something of a Satanist value system by like mirroring their uniforms and outfits or whatever, but doing something that's in honor of Satan instead of Christ. That's the basic way of putting it without being too wordy. And you can think of Corona, you can think of a lot of these things as very similarly. They start off with something involving these illnesses that they've done historically, especially since the 80s, especially with, whether it was Corona or it was the avian flu or it was, I mean, a lot of these things really, when you really get down to it, anything that's involving something that's life affirming, whether it's a bird flying and things like that and getting around or whatever it is, a Corona being life affirming, help being aid, a hive being where bees create honey and more bees and more life. All of these things turn into something that is an anti-life illness or disease. And when you get down to who did that, actually forget who, because it's really not important. And that just finding that information may be part of the game that they loop us all into. Maybe the point now would be that once you get the game, what do you do about it? What do we do about it? What are we going to do amongst each other to change this? This is a part of it. Once we get past this, I would argue that yes, it is about doing this more, having more conversations, building on what that earlier presentation, I've already said this in my ones I've done before, so it's not like I just got this from the Timcast thing today, but yeah, I agree. More venues where people are effectively conversing, sharing ideas, exchanging ideas, whatever it is. We need to have more of that. We need to have just an increase in open exchange and more people providing venues through which to do it. And I think that those of us who have the ability, the time, and don't mind taking on a little bit of the public risk, I don't mind doing the public risk part of it, absolutely not. And I do think that I could put together at least some good voices through which we could do this. I think we can get there. And so whatever that looks like, whatever it is, I think it'll be really cool in the future. I don't know if that's the direction to go with those people or whatever. However it looks, I don't know, but I know that has to be a part of it. More and more conversations, more of us sharing ideas and understanding what is really going on within physical reality and what it takes to manifest something. So again, know your power to reverse their reversals. Their reversals are basically taking life-affirming concepts and performing the law of reversal on them to be anti-life, to terraform this planet we exist in, because they just kind of want to be here by themselves and amongst each other. The irony is these people don't even like each other that much. So let's not accommodate them excessively. Let's just like forget those people and start to just do something on our own. CNN is not worth, like, guys, stop looking for CNN to solve the problem. They're obviously in on the dark side. Stop looking for MSNBC to fix it. They're in on the dark side, We're going to have to do it on our own. It's going to have to be all of us together. We're going to have to fix this. And I think we can. Actually, I don't think we can. I know we can, and I know that we are. We really are changing it, and we're going to continue changing it. It is happening. It is being brought into physical reality. I've been watching it happen. It's just, for me, it's just, I'm used to things taking a long time. Like I said, guys, I used to build towers. Sometimes they took a year or two to build. So, seeing an idea come to fruition, trying to get more and more people to accept an idea that's been historically challenged, that's been hidden from them for decades, I can be a little bit patient. I can wait a little bit longer. So, but as long as we're getting there and making progress, which I think we are. So thank you, everybody, for joining. I know very soon I'm going to have more to do on these topics. I'm going to expand on it even more, and I do appreciate it. You can find all my things in the comments below, descriptions and everything like that. I appreciate your support. Have a good evening, and thank you.